But let's talk about some real world use cases. Obviously, let's keep the customers' names private, but can we talk through some of the use cases that you guys have worked on with your customers?
Yeah, I mean, what I've got a ton of examples. The one that really comes to mind was there was a customer who had an issue. They created this great architecture in the cloud. They had this beautiful design. They were doing SD-WAN. They were creating, it was AWS, so they were doing EC2 instances. They were basically creating this whole public accessible applications through these security devices. And the security vendor, unfortunately, wasn't supporting a full HA environment through the cloud, through AWS at this time. So when we first were engaged with them, we identified that right away, that there was a shortcoming in their design work. They went off for a couple of weeks and actually came back to us, and we started sitting down with their engineering. We sat down with their cloud team, and we started to understand exactly what they were looking for. And they were looking for HA, but in particular, they were looking for failover of what's EIP, external or elastic IPs, which are basically external IPs, as well as being able to then fail over their SD-WAN tunnels that they had, which were SSL VPN at the time. So what we did is we integrated, because of the vendor, we were able to integrate these checks with them that were able to then trigger an API gateway within AWS. That API gateway then tied to a serverless environment that would then trigger the failover, not only for the security vendor devices, but actually use the API for their SD-WAN to be able to identify that the tunnel needed to be shut down, and then they would fail over to the other tunnel, as well as moving those EIPs across the different EC2 instances and basically activating that passive firewall. So even though they thought that they weren't even connected via the vendor through that HA connection, what they were able to do is work as a unit to be able to configure themselves, be able to run with the actual configuration of the other one. And then what we did is we created a API connection as well that made it possible for the organization to be able to only configure the one device, and then it would actually spread the config across the other device. So that way, if there was any changes, that was always being synced up. So if someone forgot that, oh, there's another firewall, even though it wasn't in the vendor's, single pane of glass like connection, that it would still be able to be synced. And then during that failover time, they would be able to, and it would be an automatic failover, of course, being able to fail over and having the latest config on there ready to go. So that way they had no performance impact.
That's a great example of having a team like Aaron's that have got all kinds of experiences with the full stack type of things and the newer features of like functions and things like that, leveraging all those to pull all that together to do things that you can't make work by just one piece of it. At the time, you had to have the capabilities of the Amazon cloud, the capabilities of the firewall vendor, the capabilities of the network, and the application all have to move back and forth in sync, and that is not trivial. And that's we're someone like ourselves that has not only that, but also security expertise that can bring a lot of value to the table.
Yeah, and another interesting point about that one was we were asked to code the serverless environment in a very particular scripting language, PowerShell, because that was what the customer understood the best. So we actually had to basically ramp our team up. We had PowerShell expertise, but really doing that in the service environment, that was a different step. And we were able to make it so the customer was able to manage their code without our support because they understood PowerShell the best.
In an AWS environment?
In an AWS environment.